Hello, my name is Ava Montgomery. I am the founder of and Chief Considerations Officer for Conscious Media Consulting, LLC. CMC LLC is a thought leader in conscious content creation and media consumption. Whether the content is for movies, television, the classroom, online, audio, or print formats, CMC LLC was established to be the premier thought partner from concept to completion for content creators seeking to create consciously competent content in ways that ensure accuracy in narratives and representations, what we refer to as being intentional about demonstrating conscious concern. These three aspects of media have a number of individual parts to them, and all of them work together to bring us media. Thus, we need to understand how their individual and combined roles support comprehensive media literacy. They are important roles to distinguish within the continuum for the purpose of advocating effectively for media justice. Media literacy is also about understanding the roles that influence how content is made and is about understanding the platforms that disseminate or house content. The ability to listen in, watch out, and word up consciously requires an ability to use educated lenses to comprehend a message and make educated attributions of the source for an educated analysis of purpose and intent and consequences of the media. For the purpose of conscious content creation and media consumption, CMC LLC has 5 core beliefs that serve as pillars for how we view conscious media literacy skill development. There continues to be content made that is premised on or through flaws in the construction resonates with historically false narratives. Frequently, this type of media is made to specifically target historically marginalized people. And sometimes it is a matter of not knowing what one doesn't know to be able to analyze the design effectively. As content creators and media consumers, we must be aware of a dominant narrative, what it is, and how it produced historically false narratives and misrepresentations for the purpose of marginalizing people across the globe, and how that narrative continues to replicate in one generation to another and is reflected in content creation. Welcome to this presentation on CMC LLC's 6 Spheres of Conscious Concern. Media literacy requires more than being able to watch something, to listen to something, and an ability to read something. True media literacy skills enable a content creator and a media consumer to place messaging delivered through text, talk, imaging, imagination in imaging, and symbolism in an appropriate context so that the message avoids causing intentional harm to another or being internalized so deeply that the message impedes healthy self-esteem development, which may influence a consumer to self-harm or harm another. Awareness of historically false narratives and misrepresentations premised on the dominant narrative and the objectives for the dominant narrative is where consciousness and media literacy comes in. When I speak of the dominant narrative, unless otherwise stated, I'm referring to the Western dominant narrative of superiority that was enforced through means of dominance and which inspired colonization of nations and enslavement of peoples. The Western-inspired dominant narrative incorporates many sub-narratives that are derived from beliefs of superiority and inferiority, and that subliminally appear in content. It is important to note that other types of prevailing narratives can surface across cultures in many different ways for many different beliefs. Many prevailing narratives found across cultures may find attribution to what seems to be an indelible Western footprint, whether those cultures are from formerly colonized territories or not. Colorism is an example of this. We're going to look at some images that in part support our understanding of how some aspects of the dominant narrative came to be. As well, we'll look at some imaging that in part supports our understanding of how the dominant narrative was reinforced in content. We can see the enduring influence of the dominant narrative in content today. Some of the influence is subtle, and some of it is not. Media in its various mediums is as old as time. Content for media, both denigrating and uplifting, begins with an idea and can result with an enduring narrative that, right or wrong, can be perpetuated through a continuum of media offerings. Over time, non-discernment and non-challenging of inaccurate narratives and misrepresentations in messaging can have a ripple effect on humanity. It can influence how we value ourselves, make value judgments about another, and relate to each other. A conscious content creator employs a mindset that considers how his or her or their content will be received as well as considers how it can be received, and takes caution to avoid creating content that creates or perpetuates false narratives and misrepresentations based on a dominant narrative or other fallacies. I term and define the ideal state to achieve in media content creation and conscious media literacy as that of unconscious concern, the ability to be consciously media literate without having to make a special effort to be. In other words, flags of concern are naturally raised because one has spent a lifetime acquiring an understanding of multiple consciousnesses, particularly those rooted in race and gender discourse, to inherently be able to recognize aspects of problematic content and can articulate why. Due to historical conditioning of othering people, which has become consciously and subconsciously normalized in societies over the world, I believe that unconscious concern is one of the most difficult stages of growth for adults to achieve, but it is not impossible with committed and concerted effort. So what does it mean to demonstrate the desirable state of conscious concern for content creation and for media consumption? Conscious concern for accuracy in narratives and representations means that the continuum of content creators and media influencers, 1. Seek to be consciously aware of existing false narratives and misrepresentations. 2. Seek to be consciously aware of the power that content has to create fallacies through inaccurate narratives and misrepresentations, and inspire action based upon those fallacies. 3. Are intentional in being concerned about if and how their content or association with content may contribute to manipulating discourses, further marginalizing people, and perpetuating or creating false narratives and misrepresentations. Consciously concerned content creators are intentional about ensuring that their content or associations with content demonstrates accuracy in narratives and representations by acquiring the necessary competencies in the right consciousnesses that will help them avoid causing offense. CMC LLC believes being consciously concerned for accuracy in narratives and representations are learnable skills. They can be achieved in the immediate if one is open to participating in informed discourses approached with compassionate candor. These types of conversations can help content creators identify areas where they can more effectively create and vet their content. That type of candor may include identifying how the dominant narrative or perceptions of a dominant narrative present, and can illuminate how content may be problematic in other ways. Informed, open, and honest discussions initiated with compassionate candor provide opportunities to reevaluate content and address concerns before the media or medium is released for public consumption. CMC LLC focuses attention on creating and vetting content and project consultation and training that demonstrates conscious concern in 6 primary areas. They are: culturally considerate, the historical and current context of a people, nation, group, and their cultural traditions, philosophies, beliefs, general and social norms. Often these are norms attributed to or derived from influence upon or from within a race, ethnicity, and location. How culture is used in reference to people. Linguistically considerate, the language, including colloquialisms and slang, of a people, nation, or group. This can be language attributed to or derived from influences upon or from within a race, ethnicity, and location. How and which words, terms, and phrases are used in reference to people. Social issue considerate, issues which make marginalization, inequality, inequity, or unfair treatment occur, and which reflect a historical tendency to other people so that injustice towards them is normalized and rationalized. How and which text, talk, imaging, and imagination in imaging and symbolism are used in reference to people. Gender considerate, the historical context and current context of a gender set within or independent of a dominant group or culture, and which can reflect a historical narrative that devalues gender, contributions from a gender, or to normalize and rationalize gender-based violence. How and which text, talk, imaging, and imagination in imaging and symbolism are used in reference to people. Accurate narrative considerate, the historical context and current context of a people, nation, group, set within or independent of a dominant group or culture, and narratives expressed about them. How and which words, terms, and phrases are used in reference to people. Representation considerate, The historical and current context of a representation of a people, nation, group, set within or independent of a dominant group or culture, and imaging and imagination in imaging about them. How and which text, talk, imaging, imagination in imaging, and symbolism are used in reference to people. How people, their cultures and language, specific social issues, and gender are centered or featured in imaging, imagination in imaging, text, talk, and through symbolism can create or perpetuate accurate narratives and representations, or inaccurate narratives and misrepresentations. Content created absent these considerations can and frequently do cause offense. While CMC LLC also analyzes within a range of other consciousnesses, these 6 spheres of influence are of primary concern and consideration. Because conscious media influencers understand the power of narratives to influence public opinions and potentially shape public policies, they understand that every role on the continuum of media production has a responsibility to avoid the creation and contribution of content that undermines fairness, integrity, equity, and equality in narratives and representations. Conscious concern is a desirable state of awareness to achieve. It is a process that anyone can grow in if they are willing to be intentional, challenge biases, and put in time and commitment to the work of expanding consciousness of how history is a form of media, and media is a form of history, which has impacted the way we view ourselves and view those we share the planet with. When desiring to identify content for consumption that demonstrates conscious concern for accuracy in narratives and representations, there are a number of consciousnesses that need to be considered. To acquire comprehensive skills effective for conscious media consumption, media engagers must consciously listen in, watch out, and word up. If content creators desire to demonstrate conscious concern for accuracy in narratives and representations in their content, there are a number of consciousnesses that need to be considered. Conscious content creators who want to ensure the integrity of their content to the best of their abilities proactively concern themselves with demonstrating conscious concern. They must consciously listen in, watch out, and word up. A conscious consumer will listen, watch, and read, and judge by the sincerity of content as to whether it demonstrates conscious concern. When a conscious content creator consistently demonstrates intentionality for conscious concern, then, if questions arise, they can articulate a credible answer as to why it should be considered an unintended offense rather than an intended offense. The ability to demonstrate conscious concern means that content has the chance to be free of perpetuating or creating false narratives and misrepresentations. Too often we see false narratives and misrepresentations, particularly those that are historically false and demeaning, disseminated through text, talk, imaging, imagination in imaging, and symbolism. When race and gender disparagement are repeatedly used to create shock value and get attention, it is easy to speculate if the offensive content was intentionally created. At CMC LLC, we begin with the premise that most companies want to position their brand in conscionable ways that organically appeal to a diversity of potential consumers. If you would like CMC LLC to be a consultant on your media and content project, to customize a more in-depth presentation for your organization on how to incorporate the 6 spheres of conscious concern in your media and content within your industry, or to customize a presentation on a variety of topics related to conscious media literacy skill development for content creators or consumers, please contact us to discuss the details. Thank you.